For 5 months, neither bombing nor fighting has forced them to leave Gaza City. But now, hunger is driving people south in search of something, anything, to feed their children.
We've reached a stage of hunger like never before. When my daughter wants to eat in the morning, I can't provide her with food or drink. Where am I going to get it? No Arab government is blinking an eye, nor our leadership, nor anyone. They've abandoned us.
People get water from tanks, some of it salty. Israeli bombing has destroyed wells and pipes. They transport it as best they can. Life in Gaza City has become pretty much impossible. The Israel Defense Forces are still fighting Hamas in Gaza, but Israel's closest ally is losing patience after last Thursday's incident in which at least 100 Gazans were killed when Israeli soldiers shot into a crowd trying to grab food from an aid convoy.
The Israeli government must...
So this was interesting, I will say. Kamala Harris's takes were interesting because they did use, like, you know, ceasefire for the first time, but the amount of words that the ceasefire term was sandwiched in between kind of like deviates away from the major point of contention. But here, let's
do more to significantly increase the flow of aid. No excuses. They must open new border crossings. They must not impose any unnecessary restrictions on the delivery of aid. They must ensure humanitarian personnel, sites, and
It's like crazy because like the language is very interesting. Maybe I'm too much of a nerd when it comes to communication, but they say unnecessary restrictions. So they can impose restrictions on the aid, just not unnecessary ones.
Right? Any unnecessary border.
Look here, let's
no
break
excuses.
it down.
They must open new border crossings.
They must open new border crossings, which could mean to like let in aid, or which could mean let out the Palestinians so that the ethnic displacement can continue.
They must not impose any unnecessary restrictions on the delivery of aid.
Unnecessary restrictions, unnecessary being a very important word here, as in there could be necessary restrictions on the humanitarian aid. So Israel still gets to dictate what the necessary restrictions are. So that's another important thing to understand.
They must ensure humanitarian personnel, sites, and convoys are not targeted.
No.
That last part is like, you know, pretty straightforward. Don't target the fucking convoys, right? Good. That's a good one. Basically, if you believe that Israel is targeting the humanitarian convoys, which they are, then you're like, oh, okay, good. If you go along with the Israeli narrative that the convoys are being targeted by Hamas, and that's why they have to shoot all of the Palestinians that are near the convoys, which according to hospitals on the ground and a UN investigation that was conducted off of the doctors that are there, 80%, close to 80% in certain hospitals that were treated of wounds were treated for gunshot wounds, and not because they were like, not because the trucks had driven over them and trampled. So that's something to remember. I'm certain that people were still trampled over by other people and crowd crush, and also due to the trucks driving away. But the trucks drove away because the IDF shot at the direction of the trucks. However, still treated the majority of the people were treated for gunshot wounds.
Or has Israel stopped bombing Gaza?
So I'm going to dive into Kamala Harris's full take in a second, because I think it's important to look at the entirety of the take, because it's framed in a way where it's like Hamas is not negotiating with Israel. But let's continue here for now.
Overnight, they struck 2 residences in Rafah. The Americans are calling for an immediate ceasefire, but Hamas has rejected Israel's demand for a list of Israeli hostages, so the killing goes on. As they bury their dead, the people of Gaza are cast into despair.
This is extermination. Shame on them. They need to stop the bloodshed. Why? Why are they killing us? Why don't they tell us, we want to kill you all in one go and throw one bomb and just get it over and done with?
A funeral in the West Bank too, for 16-year-old Mustafa Abu Shalbak, caught up in an Israeli raid on Ramallah today. Used threw stones and Molotov cocktails at Israeli soldiers who responded with live fire. It was the most extensive incursion into the West Bank's administrative capital for many.
The major point of contention here isn't the Hamas not releasing all of the hostage names, by the way. I know that is what Israel is framing it as. However, the major point of contention here is actually the terms and negotiations of the ceasefire. Hamas made it very clear from the jump that they want a permanent ceasefire, like leading up to a permanent ceasefire in increments through the hostage release process. The hostage release process was going to have like an immediate ceasefire with a chunk of hostages, with a prisoner swap, basically, with the hostages, the Palestinian hostages that Israel keeps, to the tune of tens of thousands. Yes, Hamas's proposal was divided into multiple stages with hostage exchanges from both sides and ending with a settlement to end the war. Exactly. And those are the conditions that Israel does not want to engage in. The Biden administration is trying to hammer home the narrative that, like an at least 6-week ceasefire first and foremost, and then we'll see. I think for two reasons they're doing this. One, because they, God forbid, they come across as like remotely critical of Israel. Holy shit, right? The other reason is because Benjamin Netanyahu, we know, in the interest of self-preservation for his damn self, wants to continue the ethnic cleansing campaign, because the longer the war continues, the longer he can stay in power. So it is a really sad state of affairs from an administration that genuinely refuses to listen to their own voters and listen to any kind of conscience or any kind of morality in this matter.
Years, the Israelis said this was a counter-terrorism operation in which they apprehended 2 suspects and seized inciting materials spread by Hamas. A ceasefire in Gaza is one thing. A solution to the wider conflict is quite another. This is happening at the same time as another ugly row is brewing between the Israeli government and the UN Relief and Works Agency. That's the UN organization charged with looking after Palestinian refugees. About an hour ago, the Israeli government put out what it claimed were intercepts, which it said proved that 2 UNRWA teachers from Gaza had participated in the killings of October the 7th. Now, that happens as UNRWA has said that many members of its staff have been detained by the Israelis from Gaza, and that when they were released, they debriefed them and found that, as UNRWA says, they were tortured, and there was also what they call sexual exploitation. Now, that feeds into a wider problem. We know that the Israeli Defense Force have been arresting people in Gaza. They have been taking people for interrogation to find out where Hamas is, as you might expect. But there are more and more allegations that people have been mistreated in custody. And this is brewing into a terrible argument. And we still don't know how many people are being held and exactly what kind of treatment they're enduring.
So let's look at Kamala Harris's takes. There's also a report that came out of the United Nations today. Clear and convincing information that hostages held in Gaza subjected to sexual violence as UN Special Representative. We're going to be talking about that as well. We are, of course, also going to be talking about Joe Brandon. A big New Yorker piece dropped. It was like an hour and 23 minutes is the length of the piece. I will obviously briefly glance through it. But before we get there, I do want to talk about Kamala Harris. So first and foremost, Joe Biden already came out due to the external pressure from people in Michigan and the Vote Uncommitted campaign, which was a profound success for the record, and had said that a ceasefire will come on Monday. Of course, that ceasefire became less likely after the flower massacre occurred. which is when the Israeli occupying force opened live ammunition and opened fire, as we saw in the videos with the tracers, on a crowd of Palestinians that were trying to get aid from one of the few convoys that were allowed into Gaza. So that kind of gummed up the works a little bit in terms of continuing a ceasefire negotiation in good faith. And then after that, Biden had one other response. I don't know exactly where it was. It was like one of those like helicopter interviews, like right before he gets off the plane or helicopter. But Kamala Harris yesterday also came out with a take where she openly stated, this is like as official as it's going to get, a ceasefire. However, there was a lot of conditions for the ceasefire. And I wanted to break down every single thing that she said. Is this the longer? I don't know if this is the longest version. There's got to be a better version of this. Do we have like the full-blown one? Here, let's just start here.
Given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire.
People go crazy for this.
For at least the next 6 weeks.
But then immediately after she pauses, goes, for at least the next 6 weeks. So that's like first and foremost, it's like, wait, what? Ceasefire for at least the next 6 weeks? Okay, that's a weird way to reframe this. Okay, so she goes, at least she says at least, she doesn't say for the next 6 weeks, at least next 6 weeks. So what happens after 6 weeks? I want to point to something here. There are a multitude of factors at play here. Obviously, Israel's relentless ethnic cleansing campaign having a massive human toll, like a baby murder machine, basically, a very successful baby murder machine being presented to the American population, to the Western world in broad daylight due to social media, but also due to the fact that like the Israelis themselves keep posting about it, has genuinely played a role in the people's attitude changing on the matter. But another very important part of this process is the continued pressure campaign. To those who say protests don't work, I present to you what you see in front of you. This is why I have always maintained the position that you have to keep pressuring. You have to keep applying pressure. You cannot stop. You cannot deviate. You have to. You must. Because it would have never gotten to this place, no matter the death toll, if people just looked away and didn't consistently try to find wherever Biden is, try to find wherever the Democratic Party is, and keep up the pressure. Protesting on the streets, going to the events that the Democratic Party is holding, and consistently push and push and push.
Which is what is currently on the table. This will get the hostages out and get a significant amount of aid in.
Yeah.
This would allow us to build something more enduring, to ensure Israel is secure and to respect the right of the Palestinian people to dignity, freedom, and self-determination.
So that's really interesting because what they clipped out and posted, like their public-facing commentary on this, is very different than what she actually said when she was there. Interesting that this is what they chose to go along with, because if you listen to the full-blown, if you listen to her entire take uninterrupted, you get a very different vibe or a very different sense.
As President Joe Biden said on Friday, the United States is committed to urgently get more life-saving assistance to innocent Palestinians in need. Yesterday, the Department of Defense carried out its first airdrop of humanitarian assistance, and the United States will continue these airdrops. And we will work on a new route by sea to deliver aid. And the Israeli government must...
Yeah, let's see the Israeli attack helicopters dump munition into the fucking American ships like they did to Mavi Marmara that pushed through the blockade, the humanitarian aid that pushed through the blockade for last time. Let's see. The American military is Hamas. What they are doing is delivering lethal aid to Hamas. We have found that the American military is doing Hamas terror.
Do more to significantly increase the flow of aid. No excuses.
I think one of the major changes in attitude while Israel continues being consistently awful in its conduct in the way that it is doing an ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza is that it is going to inevitably put the American government at odds with the interests of the Netanyahu cabinet. This is going to create a pressure valve. This is going to, I suspect, create an interest, a real interest in the American government that even Joe Biden's dumbass, old ass, demented ass can see to say, we need an exit ramp. We need a fucking villain. That villain is going to be Benjamin Netanyahu. The Democratic Party, which originally was pushing the Itamar Ben-Gvir line pretty much, no red lines, bear hugging Netanyahu, is going to look for a way to separate themselves or even push themselves in a position where they are at odds seemingly with the Israeli government. The villain is going to be Benjamin Netanyahu. They are going to assume the liberal Zionist line. They're going to start pushing that way more openly, where they say, yeah, this entire ethnic cleansing campaign is actually, it's the hands, Israel's hands were forced, but Benjamin Netanyahu's gone too far, and he's doing this out of like pure self-interest, and that's why we got to get him out. We got to get our boy Benny Gantz in there, who is more popular than Benjamin Netanyahu, and he's going to continue doing the apartheid with a liberal veneer. Because the reality is, if Israel continues being at odds with the American government this publicly, there will be a need for the American government to change its position. You literally said the West would backtrack months after October 7. It's so bittersweet to see it happen. Yeah, I mean, I knew anyone who has seen the way that Israel carries out these operations knew that this is what was going to happen. Obama endured like 2 terms of this. Only way Biden does this is if Israel acts more out of pocket. No, there has never been a situation in contemporary American politics where Israel was this aggro. There is no comparison. In the past, the American government was also way faster in, even Biden himself stopped Benjamin Netanyahu in the past in 2021. By the way, look no further than this. Harris to meet with Israeli Minister Benny Gantz to discuss temporary Gaza ceasefire. This is the American government basically saying we're sidestepping Netanyahu and we're presenting Benny Gantz as the guy. He's in D.C. currently talking to American envoys, American politicians. This should have happened a long ass fucking time ago. Even by the standards of like Democratic Party's interest in self-preservation, American soft power in the region, regional stability. It should have happened months ago. Gantz is still a part of the war cabinet. He is no peaceful dove by any metric, for the record. I'm not saying that at all. I'm simply stating that although Gantz isn't any fucking better, this would have been a perfect narrative for the American government to be like, we still have control over what's going on, and we're actually getting, we're forcing some concessions out of Israel. But they didn't even fucking do that. They didn't even do that. They're literally sidestepping the prime minister, but the U.S. doesn't have that kind of power over Israel. Yeah, anyone who tells you that the United States doesn't have this kind of power over Israel is either a liar or very stupid, like the stupidest person on the planet. I'm sorry. They're either completely misguided or they're just deliberately lying to you. America has always had this kind of control over Israel. Israel would not exist in the way that it does as an apartheid regime without political cover that we offer to it and also the weapons that we give it. It is our state and not even a shitty state like North Dakota, like an important state. Won't there be backlash from the Zionist lobbyists? It don't fucking matter. It don't matter. This is about America maintaining its soft power around the world. This is about America maintaining regional stability. That's why there are literal State Department officials that have dedicated their whole lives to destabilizing these fucking regions that are literally saying the same things I'm saying. This is in the interest of self-preservation for America, and it's in the interest of self-preservation for Israel. If Israel wants to continue being an apartheid regime, it cannot continue doing this ethnic cleansing. Do you understand? That is what I'm saying. This is not for like long-term peace or Palestinian autonomy at all. I don't think America gives a shit about that beyond simply caring about regional stability. So they're doing that already. They're sidestepping Benjamin Netanyahu a little bit.
They must open new border crossings. They must not impose any unnecessary restrictions on the delivery of aid. They must ensure humanitarian personnel, sites, and convoys are not targeted. And they must work to restore basic services and promote order in Gaza so more food, water, and fuel can reach those in need. As I have said repeatedly since October 7, Israel has a right to defend itself. And President Joe Biden and I are unwavering in our commitment to Israel's security.
Yeah, see, like, and then after the ceasefire talks with like conditions peppered into it, she immediately is like, Israel has a right to defend itself. Come on, please.
Hamas cannot control Gaza, and the threat Hamas poses to the people of Israel must be eliminated. Hamas is a brutal terrorist organization that has vowed to repeat October 7th again and again.
The rest of it is basically just like the regular old lines that you've heard a million times over. Yeah, the clapping stops immediately, by the way, which is pretty funny.
Until Israel is annihilated. Hamas has shown no regard for innocent life, including for the people of Gaza, who have suffered under its rule for almost 2 decades.
Yeah. Speaking over Palestinians, their wants, their needs, their desires, and not even like looking at it critically, not even looking at it seriously. This kind of attitude is of course going to be commonplace in American politics. It is certainly the attitude of the Western media. It's certainly the attitude that they're trying to present as like the norm. This is the exact type of energy as those who have brilliant opinions like, let's put the Palestinian Authority in charge of Gaza. You are a fucking dumbass if you think that that is a valid solution. You're just so wrong. I don't know how else to describe it. The Palestinian Authority is seen, understandably so, by Palestinians as a part of the Israeli security apparatus. You are fucking delusional. And they are a part of the Israeli security apparatus. The Palestinian Authority participates in the kidnapping and torturing of Palestinians in the West Bank. That is why, when polled, Palestinian people say time and time again that the PA is not popular. It is the second least popular entity in the region. Hamas is infinitely more popular than the Palestinian Authority. There is also a comfortable middle ground here that Hamas is willing to concede on. There is a third way out of this situation, and if you were an honest actor, you would recognize that. Hold on. What is the name of the dude again? I keep forgetting. Is the PLA considered to be controlled opposition at this point by Palestinians? The Palestinian Authority is not even considered controlled opposition. The Palestinian Authority is considered to be the opposition. Or not the opposition, to be a part of the Israeli security apparatus, because it is. That is the reason why they are almost as unpopular as Israel is in the eyes of the Palestinians.
And Hamas still holds dozens of hostages for nearly 150 days now. Innocent men and women, including American citizens. Yes, the person I was looking for, thank you, Turbo Greg, is Marwan Barghouti. Marwan Hasib Ibrahim Barghouti is a Palestinian political figure convicted and imprisoned for murder by an Israeli court. He's regarded as the leader of the first and second intifadas. Barghouti at the one time supported the peace process, but later became disillusioned, and after 2000 went on to become the leader of the second intifada from the West Bank. Barghouti was the leader of Tanzim, a paramilitary offshoot of Fatah. Israeli authorities have called Barghouti a terrorist, accusing him of directing numerous attacks, including suicide bombings against civilian and military targets alike. Barghouti was arrested by the IDF in 2002 in Ramallah. He was tried and convicted on charges of murder and sentenced to 5 life sentences. Marwan Barghouti is the Nelson, regarded as the Nelson Mandela of Palestine, of Palestinians. His release is also, they didn't kill him. No, there's another person there's another brother that they killed him. There's another brother that they killed. One of the Barghouti brothers, I think, was killed. The thing is, Barghouti is still one of the most active. I don't understand. Isn't he supposed to be a murderer? Brother, I don't know how to describe this to you, but
Okay, sister, I don't know how to describe this to you, but you must understand that his crime is resisting against a genocidal apartheid ethno-state that occupies the existence of Palestinians.
Who were brutally taken from their homes and from a concert. I will repeat, the threat of Hamas poses to the people of Israel must be eliminated. And given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire. For at least the next 6 weeks, which is what is currently.
His trial was a sham. There was no evidence, and all the eyewitnesses were in favor of his innocence. There was a European institute that audited the trial and said it was a sham. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't fucking matter.
On the table. This will get the hostages out and get a significant amount of aid in. This would allow us to build something more enduring, to ensure Israel is secure and to respect the right of the Palestinian people to dignity, freedom, and...
Just so you understand, they just don't want Israel to go in and kill Palestinians during Ramadan. Because if they do that, then they are going to invoke the wrath of the entire Muslim world, justifiably and understandably. This is a holy month for the Ummah. This is very important. Israel routinely is the most violent during Ramadan, for the record, just so you understand. It is when, it is usually around this time where Israel starts increasing its pressure in the West Bank, which I suspect they will continue to do. What the fuck? Ramadan will make it unacceptable, but until then, no worries. No, guys, it's all about what Israel can get away with. Like what the entirety of the American State Department will consider to be a red line crossed. I suspect that Israel will reshift its priorities and focus into the West Bank as they normally do during Ramadan, as they have done time and time again, which will, of course, understandably create a lot more anger amongst the Palestinian population, especially in Gaza and in West Bank as well. I hope that that's not what happens. But remember, these guys only talk about ceasefire in Gaza, and they barely even talk about ceasefire in Gaza as Israel is continuing an ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza. Israel has not decreased its pressure on the occupied territory of West Bank, where 2.5 million Palestinians live. And oftentimes, in at least the past decade, every single time Hamas has retaliated and violated the ceasefire that everyone loves talking about, has always been in retaliation for the acts that the Israeli occupying force has done, the unimaginable, inhumane, profoundly cruel acts upon Palestinians at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. There is an annual raid at Al-Aqsa that the occupying force conducts, where they brutalize, beat the shit out of, and throw grenades into the fucking mosque. They stop travel to Al-Aqsa as best as they can. And while you in Iowa might be thinking, all religions are cringe, this is what these people have. It's all they have is their faith. Okay? When you shut that off, historically, that always leads to tremendous conflict. It is outward religious suppression. It is completely unacceptable. I do not give a fuck about your childish takes as an r/atheist Redditor. What matters is allowing these people to freely practice their religion.
Self-determination. Hamas claims it wants a ceasefire. Well, there is a deal on the table.
I thought you said this isn't a war about religion. It's not. Brother, this is not a war about religion at all. You have to be a fucking dumbass to think it is. Religious suppression does not imply that this is a war about religion. What the fuck are we talking about here? What you're missing is Israel's interests. It has nothing to do with Judaism. Israel's actions are antithetical to Judaism. No matter how hard they claim it is done at the behest of Judaism. It is about land. It is about power. It is about creating an ethno-state. Religious suppression is simply another fascist tool to humiliate the masses, to continue the pressure. That's it. Because think about it this way. There are plenty of Palestinian Christians as well, and their rights, their religious rights, are always regularly suppressed. It's supposed to be, Judeo-Christian values in the United States of America.
And as we have said, Hamas needs to agree to that deal. Let's get us.
I agree, but religious ethno-state says it all. Religion does play a big part in the problem, too. Religion is simply a tool. It is an organizing tool. That's it. Move beyond seeing the word religion and immediately thinking, oh, this is a religious war. It's a holy war. It's not. Religion can be used as a tool for abolition, revolution, or it can be used as a mechanism to suppress. Religion played a role in both sides of the Civil War. Religion played a role in both sides of the argument for and against slavery. Liberation theology was formative and important in literally, we're looking at the Edmund Pettus Bridge right now. Why is this a famous bridge? It played a profoundly important role in the civil rights movement. Liberation theology did. Martin Luther King is a fucking reverend. Religion also, Christianity especially, was utilized as a tool to justify and normalize slavery. At a certain point, you must understand, religion is subject to interpretation. It is never the primary role. It is just a way to galvanize the masses. And for the Palestinians, religion is all they have. Islam, Christianity, and their faith is all they have that remains when they have nothing else. So taking that away and suppressing that is a big part of the fascist toolkit. Israel is no more a defender of Judaism and Jewish principles than ISIS is of Islam. Both are colonial entities in the region that have bastardized the interpretation of religion and claimed that they are engaging in righteous conquest due to the fact that they claim that they are defenders of their respective religions. They are not. That's it. Get it out of your fucking head. Now, of course, the difference is that the entirety of the Muslim world do not agree that ISIS is a true believer of Islam. And unfortunately, because of Israel's material importance and geopolitical interest for American interests in the region, defenders of Israel have been able to very successfully create the narrative that Israel does this at the behest of Judaism, but it is not the case. No more than Saudi Arabia's genocide in Yemen was an act of religion. It was not. Yes, the Houthis were aligned with Iran, but it is simply a motivator. It is simply a mechanism to create support. It's not the primary reason.
Ceasefire. Let's reunite the hostages with their families, and let's provide immediate relief to the people of Gaza. I will now address the occasion for our gathering today.
Anyway, and then the rest of it is other stuff, but this is it. In response to the enormous pressure from angry voters but unwilling to budge on policy, the Biden White House in recent weeks has taken a cynical PR strategy of simply redefining what a ceasefire means. I wrote about how they're doing this and how the media is helping them get away with it. Yeah. They were like, okay, you guys said ceasefire, so let's redefine what ceasefire means, and then let's push for that instead. Respectfully, Hasan, you didn't grow up in a cult. I agree with you on most things except religion. It's far more toxic than you portray it as, in my honest opinion. I'm not portraying anything that isn't just the facts, just the truth. Many already know that I am not a religious person myself. I'm not. I grew up in a Muslim country. My family are Muslim. I grew up around actually very seriously conservative Muslim people, as well as the majority of very secular Muslim people. I do not like arguing against Chatter's own personal framework due to their own personal trauma. When I tell you that religion has played a very important role in both defending slavery and also in the abolition of slavery. That is just pure historical fact. Do you understand? Just like we are talking about states that have claimed in the United States of America, to bring it back to U.S. domestic politics and abortion for a second. In the conversation surrounding abortion, evangelical Christianity is the major reason as to why people push for restrictions on who can get this medical care. It is said to protect religious freedom. It's bullshit. You have plenty of Christians who are defending the right to be able to get an abortion. However, Judaism is used as a reason for why the abortion restrictions are actually suppressing the religious faith of Jews in red states currently. You saying something that is subjective is absolutely true? Fuck out of here. What? You're wrong on this. They have their bodies and their capacity to do work. There's no room for religious thought if you're interested in what is true. You saying something that is subjective is absolutely true. What are you saying? It is objectively true that religion, Christianity specifically, played a role in both the maintenance and preservation of slavery from white supremacists that cited the Bible to say slavery is fine and dandy. And religion also played a very important role in the abolition of slavery. John Brown was a fucking freak as far as like how religious he was. John Brown also was a hero. Your own personal traumas with whatever fucking cult-like existence that you had in your upbringing does not matter when we are talking about how religion is used as a tool. Do you understand? You have to separate your own personal experiences and the trauma that you got from a religious fundamentalist upbringing to what I am referencing here. It is so strange to bring this point up. It is so American, so selfish to bring this point up while we are talking about the suppression of religion for Palestinian people in the month of Ramadan. Please, Americans have no capacity to see anything beyond their own fucking unique individualist perspectives. Stop centering yourself in this conversation. This has nothing to do with you. Just sit back and try to develop a better framework and develop understanding and empathy for those who do not think like you, that are subjected to profound evil. It's very frustrating. God damn, dude. It's like, imagine seeing people get fucking destroyed for wanting to practice their faith freely, as they have done, as they have every right to. We're having conversations about like the Israeli occupying force going into the Al-Aqsa mosque and like throwing fucking flashbang grenades into the mosque as people are praying. And you go, well, religion sucks actually. Okay, so it's good that they're doing that? Is that the point? Is that what you want other people to think about your framework? You got to rephrase it. Would it be better to throw a flashbang in a church? Yeah, maybe that's how they'll understand it. It's like looking at fucking what's his face, Dylan Roof, and being like, well, that was an anti-religious act inherently. You're strawmanning. No atheist thinks flashbanging a church is ethical. Shut the fuck up. Bringing it up in this conversation is the most like quintessential all lives matter ass fucking take. It's even worse than all lives matter. It's literally being like someone saying Black Lives Matter and you turning around and being like, yeah, well, actually, I'm a vegan and nobody's talking about the slaughter of pigs. The fuck? How did that come into the fray here? Like, what's going on? Atheists immediately turn up the fucking veganism dial in the way that they fucking talk about these things and just demonstrate their lack of understanding of how people operate and how important religion is for their lives. This was a big problem in the USSR as well, by the way, for all the lefty atheists out there. I've talked about this before, but people believe shit that is stupid and silly. Shut the fuck up. You have beliefs that are silly. Many people that you love, who you consider to be brilliant, believe that capitalism is the greatest economic organization to have ever existed. Just because you have been able to work it out in your mind and now you think you're above that kind of thinking does not change that reality. And religious commitment is very important to many more people on this planet than not. You will never be able to build a solid coalition by advocating for religious suppression. You will never be able to do any form of governance without while simultaneously trying to advocate for religious suppression. Religious suppression is not the reason why many more people are fucking atheists nowadays, dumbasses. It's not because you debate lorded so successfully. Think about your own upbringing. It's actually the opposite. It's religious fundamentalism that causes people to go, I don't really like this shit. I can speak on it from my own personal experiences, I guess, my own personal journey. So shut the fuck up. You're making it harder for people. If your goal is to get everyone to recognize the wrongs of religion or whatever, you're making it so much harder for people to come to that term because you're negatively polarizing them. And you're by being annoying as fuck. Dumbass little fashy debate pervers. Holy shit. You are such anti-Marxist is boring. It's not personal traumas. Is Marx and Lenin stop saying is American? Lenin says otherwise, motherfucker. First of all, suck my dick. You saw religion as the opiate of the masses and you ran with it as though you understand. And you are also treating these figures as though they are pastors themselves or infallible in any way. Shut up. He's like, bro, I don't believe in religion. That's why I treat Marx like he's Jesus Christ himself. Okay, got it. Thank you, man. Thank you for interpreting his words. Jesus. So dumb. Anyway,